Another edition of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we've got another exciting episode. And today we're talking about deep tech. And when we talk about deep tech, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. We're going to be talking about quantum. We're going to be talking about blockchain, one of our favorite technologies, and many others. But we're also going to be talking about space and looking at going to the stars and much further beyond as well, and how technology, such as those in deep tech, are playing a role at pushing us into not just low orbit, but much further beyond as well. And what was once science fiction today is much more than science fact. So stay tuned as we're going to dive into that, as we've brought together two of the best and the brightest within these industries to share their on-the-ground perspective, thoughts, and insights as well around the technologies and surrounding industries, along with regions around the world that are thriving in these two categories that we will be talking about today. And before we introduce each of them, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear, click subscribe. Make sure you check out the archive as well, as we bring speakers from around the world to share, again, their on-the-ground perspective, but also help educate you, so you as investors in the audience know where you should be investing, what the latest trends are as well. And then as entrepreneurs, you know who's investing, what's happening, and maybe where your next company, product, or service should be positioned or aligned to as well for market growth and potential. And if you'd like to be on the show today, like an investor, or excuse me, like our investors that will be speaking in just a moment, reach out. And entrepreneurs, join us on our virtual stage to pitch us your company, product, or service, to get real-time feedback from each and every one of us as investors, but also to get exposure to our entire live community here at VCTV. And a big thank you to the team at La Token and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. Again, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest. First and foremost, the Grand Master of Artificial Intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Fowler. Welcome back to the show. Intro, background.
Yeah, sure. My name's Gary Fowler. Great to be here. Great to see my friend Arena, Maria, you, Kyle. It's great. Anyhow, I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've started 17 companies, 2 unicorns, involved in original management team at Click Software, sold for $1.35 billion. And also Eva.ai. I am the CEO, co-founder, and president of Get Shit Done, GSD Venture Studios. We curate AI companies from around the world and help them become unicorns using Silicon Valley support. I love AI, I love quantum computers. I just wrote another article on talking about when AI passes the human brain processes. So it's actually going to be in Medium, I think, tomorrow. And just love AI. What can I say?
Wonderful. We actually had a great episode conversation, you and I, recently on quantum too, and where the state of quantum is, where things are going, and how AI and quantum are going to be one. And we'll leave that for there in just a moment, and where that industry is going.
I gotta tell you one thing. I
Please.
just got off the phone with some off Zoom with some really interesting folks. It looks like we have a new portfolio company that has developed a quantum-proof cybersecurity tool, quantum-proof. So I mean, it's unbelievable. Actually, I've been as enchanted with some of the technologies I've seen over the last 3 days. It's the things coming out are just. I almost said light years ahead. Here we are in space tech, but
which we are on the space topic, and we also know with quantum, I got to be careful of my wording with mentioning the words curve or bending, as well, as those can mean a whole different thing when we're talking about that topic. But let's hold right there and introduce Arena. Arena, welcome back, crypto superwoman herself. It's an absolute pleasure. Also a huge fan and investor in the space industry. But before I introduce you, I'll let you take it away from there.
Thank you, Kyle. I love this topic, space and deep tech. And what, I mean, look at us, 3 of us, I just love it. It's amazing what's happening in the space industry and in the deep tech, AI, quantum. I mean, your distributed ledger technology is really taking off, and that's a deep tech too. So we're just all embracing and living, in some kind of a quantum leap, that's for sure. pun intended. Irina Litchfield, many know me as a crypto superwoman. I am founder of Blockchain Cube. Blockchain Cube is a financial technology integration with distributed ledger technology, though the blockchain isn't a name. No blocks, no chains sometimes. Again, pun intended from the previous episode. Look at me, I'm on fire today, guys. So anyhow, oh yeah. I'm founder of a space fund, and Space Fund is the first venture capital dedicated to space. They actually just closed 6 months ago. They closed their first fund, and now they're opening next one, so Space Fund 2, and that's a little bit of a later stage for the later stage companies as well. So everything is exciting in the space industry, and I advise to many financial technology companies as well. So, but pleasure to be here, and I love that there's 3 of us, so we can really dive into some of the topics.
Absolutely, and shout out to Megan Crawford as well. You're founding a co-founder there at Space Fund, and also to Ifran, who just joined us on the blockchain panel, who's an advisor and part of the team as well. So if you haven't checked out Space Fund, shameless promotion, definitely do. Megan and I did an awesome fireside chat, just as Gary and I did on quantum, Megan and I did around space. So tons to talk about, and definitely check it out in the archive as well. But let's jump in. So deep tech space, where are we going? Where are things at right now? How is deep tech playing a role? And Irina, let's start with you. How is deep tech, so AI, blockchain, and some of those other areas, playing a role in the space industry? Because traditionally, from previous conversations you and I've had, space industry had huge boom in the 60s and 70s, as we know, and then it went a little dark in terms of what was going to happen next, but it also brought us new technologies. Then we had the introduction of SpaceX and Elon and Jeff Bezos, now with Blue Origin, and many other companies, and Virgin Galactic. I want to make sure to mention them, as we spoke about them yesterday. And these companies coming in on the private sector. So now we've seen this huge progression, but 2020 started a new decade. A lot more technology, a lot more efforts around deep tech. What is the role that deep tech will play in the space industry for the next 10 years? And where do you see that going as well?
Well, thank you. It's a great question. Integration of innovations is really crucial for what we want to do in space. Space settlement is definitely a challenge, and we do have to make sure we take advantage of all the innovations that we have so far discovered, in order to be able to create new discoveries and innovations that will come as a result from us pushing those boundaries in space. Obviously, as we think about, AI is going to play a crucial role, right? The understanding of what's happening with your ecology inside of the, whether space station, the settlement, or for your distributed ledger. Simple supply chain and space payment transfers are very important, as we are starting to see more and more service providers going to low Earth orbit, and then as we push forward. Just a small note too, for example, Firefly is a small to medium satellite launch company. They actually are transportation companies, so they're building a full infrastructure to be able to go all the way from launching satellites to actually delivering to moon and back. Right, and then they'll deliver past that. That's very exciting. They're sending their first rocket in February, and so they're sending their first payload and all of that. But as we move forward, we need to have very many different innovations, creating solutions, and also quantum. I want to mention quantum too. In order for us to be able to reach as far as we can see so far, we need to start redefining the way we think about physics, because we have hit a plateau at this point, and the traditional transportation method is not going to get us to where we can see at this point. As Gary mentioned many times, we have so many potentially habitable planets that we actually see and know that are there, but we are not going to get there on a rocket. It's just physically not possible, right? Because there's too many failure modes. And so in quantum, we are seeing a lot of interesting patents being filed and a lot of projects that are coming out, and they're defying the meaning of gravity and everything. So it seems really far science, and it is a very deep tech, but it is something that is happening. And I do believe that we'll kind of see maybe a sub-disruption in the next 5 years as far as the methods of transportation, and then possible that those that are building right now rockets to get us to bases, they might, my hypothesis that they'll be disrupted with different alternative methods of traveling through space and time.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
we've talked go ahead. No, please continue.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
we've talked a little bit about those stations and those bases in space. Again, very, very true to form of what's being developed, outside of our atmosphere, if you will, in those stars. And we've talked not just about the International Space Station, but also what's happening and being planned just outside of that, and even on the moon, and then to Mars as well. So a lot of activity there. But I want to pause for just a minute and see, Gary, do you have anything to add into the same, what Irina mentioned, but the same question is deep tech playing a role into space and pushing that industry forward for the next decade?
Yeah, so when you say deep tech, you mean artificial intelligence and quantum, obviously, right? Yes. I mean, I don't think there's a choice, Kyle. There's really no choice. We're not going to get out to space unless we have it and use it. And so, we're on an incredible journey right now. I mean, I like a lot of you can see the visibility really across the board. In all kinds of different ways, realizing there could be life on other planets, and just across the board. So what I see in artificial intelligence, I mean, think about what's happening now. You have Starlink, you've got the space station, you've got our road to Mars. You got Elon Musk selling his property, so he's going to spend all his money because he wants to colonize Mars. Really. And so it kind of sounds kind of funny, but when you have $188 billion and you're the richest guy on the planet Earth, and you've made some incredible successes, it becomes real. We are on an incredible journey. I mean, we've talked about this many times, but, we're at a point where we'll deplete the resources on the planet, and we need to have other places to go. So using wormholes, the teleportation of quantum particles, wherever that goes. So all kinds of different ways to get there. I think we've got to think differently in terms of space. The other side is, we don't talk about a lot, but with these asteroids flying around and not able to really defend against them now, we've got to come up with systems in space that can help us to be able to defend ourselves. I mean, we don't want to have another dinosaur-like experience. Nothing good happens if a couple mile wide asteroid hits the oceans, right? Nothing good's going to happen. So we got a lot of work to do, and we need to know how to work together. The other thing is taking that trip to Mars. We're going to need, as the European Space Agency has, these smart AI assistants that can understand where we are in terms of our health, can help us psychologically. It's not easy. Imagine being cooped up for a year in something not too big, and with all the stress involved. So how are we going to look at particles coming at us? How are we going to be able to deflect objects in space? We need to have artificial intelligence, and we need to have the systems to be able to look at all that data and instantly make decisions and course correct. So, and then you look at the technologies that we need to have. I mean, what's going to happen to our bodies when we're out in space that long, right? We're not really set for it with having no gravity. And look at the deterioration of muscles and that kind of thing. So it's an incredible time. And then, the thing that's really interesting, look at all the innovations that come out of space. So, everything from Velcro, right, from the Russians for the spacesuits, onward and upward. freeze-dried foods, all kind of things come out of it that because of the push for space. So I'm encouraged. I have a call on Friday with one of the astronauts that's going up in Virgin Galactic, Per Wimmer, and your friend, right, Christopher Altman. It's it's an incredible time. I mean, we finally opened up. Our minds have finally opened up, and it's only happened recently. But we understand that there can be life out there. Well, there's most probably life. Remember, there's 6 billion Earth-like planets just in the Milky Way that are close enough to a star that they're in the Goldilocks zone. But the thing is, and this is from Christopher directly, it's now estimated there are 200 trillion galaxies in the universe. 200 trillion, right? And so we're going to find something, and probably sooner than later. Or maybe we already have, but it's an interesting opportunity for us. We are on a journey, an incredible journey. I was laughing to myself. I got it from Toy Story, and I said to infinity and beyond. I was kind of laughing, but we are there, man. We're out there, and it's a great time. And so AI, quantum computers will play an incredible role in this journey, and they are already, and they will continue to.
It is, and it'd be exciting to see how the artificial intelligence, how the training models and how the learning models, so what we're training them to do, and then how they continue to evolve and learn as we go, how those play a role in, beyond the stars as well, right? So when you're up in space, for instance, as Arena likes to say, space is always trying to kill you. Any movie you've ever watched about space, that's pretty much the plot. It's very exciting to start, oh yeah, we're gonna go to space, and then space is trying to kill all of the cast members, the entire movie. And then at the end, it just, there's like 4 different endings. Choose your own adventure. But nonetheless, like how AI will play a role in helping us. And Arena, curious, as we do look to a lot of these companies that you and Space Fund are investing in, maybe what are some of those, 1 or 2 areas that you're very focused on here for the next 5 years that you feel is a very important industry, and to why? As well. As investors, we usually think 5 to 10 years ahead, but because space, and Megan and you and I have spoken about this as well, is a lot of what people are building today for space, it's a little far out, but they're finding small areas to begin building to that bigger vision. Even Gary mentioned around SpaceX, and we saw that happen with them as well. So what at Space Fund are you looking at, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 areas, again, that are being built here in the next 5 years?
Great. So really supporting the whole infrastructure of what it takes to be able to go and settle space and push the frontiers. Space founders of Space Fund are founders of Earthlight Foundation. So they want to make sure that as we explore the frontiers and we push the frontiers, we ensure that we bring the correct values for what it means to be humanity, and establish those values, which goes along with what Gary has been advocating a lot too, right? Which is a compassionate AI. So I think that we are just kind of merging that all together. But overall, we really do not right now have a full infrastructure and enough service providers in the space industry. And so one of the things that Space Fund concentrating on is making sure that they constantly evaluate what is needed, and then they do the research and see what is there, what companies are there, and what companies are not there. So for now, the biggest kind of a goal is to support small market cap space companies in their growth and adoption, because what's happening right now is that the small market cap space companies get to a point to where they have problems with finding funding, and so they go through mergers and acquisitions, and so that kind of slows down the innovation, because it goes back to kind of the model that we've seen before, to where only big companies have been providing solutions for space. And that, as we know, we need to go fast and we need to break things. And in order to do that, we need to have a full infrastructure and really establish space as an asset class. So I would say that, you know, it's not a technology answer, which is interesting, because we have all these technologies, but at this point, what we need to create is space as an asset class and create global and financial infrastructure. So then we have different stages of the companies coming in and pushing the boundaries, right? Because we cannot continue relying on billionaires following their passion, because eventually, if you do not get there, interest burn out, and also people, things happen, right? So we can't really rely on that. And so that's the goal, and that's the mission that Space Fund is working on. And Lumeria and the Aid Global too, we are working together with many others to making sure that we establish that space as an asset class. I want to go back a little bit in the history and say, you know, we had this huge boom in 60s, and then everything slowed down. And I do believe that everything slowed down because the only governments could do things in space, and then you could be a company who is working with government and provides, you know, on government contracts, and so there was not really free enterprise. About 11 years ago, space industry became available to free enterprise, and by the way, Rick Tomlinson was instrumental in accomplishing that. He advised to White House, and he advised to other governments as well. For example, asteroid mining. You know, he was crucial in underlining that infrastructure as well. And I think that that's the thing that we must keep in mind, is that the reason we have Elon Musk doing what he's doing is because we now have that infrastructure to where you can actually go and be a private company and say, I'm gonna go to the moon, or I'm gonna go to the Mars, or I'm going to go to whatever star and break the boundary of physics and, you know, change the way the trajectories of whole human extension work, or whatever it is. It is all now possible because we have that legislation. And so it's interesting that now that we do have that, we need to now, again, I repeat, establish space as an asset class, because as big as it is, it's still not an asset class. It's not an established asset class. And to me, that's fascinating, because it is established industry, right? And an industry that's, I mean, we went to the moon, man. We are, you know, we have all these satellites and all these explorations, and we see into the stars and all the things that I mean, look at, you can go in and lose yourself in what we have been able to see into the space and do into the space and research and science, but it's not an established asset class yet.
Yes, and the key word is yet. And, you know, on a contrarian view on that, and Gary, I would love your thoughts here in a second as well. But pardon me, you know, part of that, a lot of it was focused in the public sector. So it was focused around, you know, government and universities who controlled most of those things that you mentioned, whether it was research or experiment, or, you know, scientific experiments, for instance, or the routes getting there as well. And then also, typically from an investor standpoint, there haven't been many opportunities to get in to the industry, right? As we've talked about what you and Space Fund and others are doing, but then also a lot of the companies traditionally have needed a significant amount of capital, one, and then two, once they got the capital, the other question was, how do they get there? And the amount of money it used to cost, again, cost to even get to low orbit was so great that even if you did raise capital, you burned most of it trying to get one payload up, and that was it. And it either worked and you hopefully were able to make some kind of revenue to do it again, or else it didn't and you're done. So in fairness, you're right. It hasn't been an asset class until now. It's starting to become, because it just wasn't open. And now I truly believe and support you and the Space Fund and many others in this. We've seen Lux Capital. We've seen a handful of others that are focused on what was once called frontier technologies, now deep technologies, and now just individual, such as space and quantum and AI, that this is the decade where that will open up in a very dramatic way. Because again, those companies have big visions, but they need to start somewhere. And that's what we're starting to see as well, right? Looking at someone like, I think it's Made in Space, and how they began around 3D printing. And whereas as a 3D printing company, we're able to get a 3D printer into space as well and start doing both sides, not just one as well, which again has been costly for now. Soon, as we've seen with all technology and industries, those costs will come down. So very much support you on that as well, Irina. And Gary, anything to add into that? I mean, even in quantum, you and I spoke about how expensive quantum is. So throw that into the mix, which I think is still appropriate to say. I don't think I broke any quantum realms in that statement. But then even AI, right? I mean, implementing artificial intelligence, there's a cost effective, and then there's a very not so cost effective way to do that. So some of these deep tech and technologies and space, they're expensive. And they've been hard or difficult traditionally to get into, but now that's starting to open up. Anything to add into
Well, I mean,
Irina's point?
there's competition now too. It's a lot different than it used to be. It used to be Russia and the US. Right now, the situation, it's commercially available. Difference is you're not, I mean, think about the reason we were really successful is because of the competitive nature. I mean, to put up the Apollo missions and land on the moon, it's about competition. So, but now it's a different kind of competition. It's a business competition. And how can we get it up faster? And then you got the governments behind it because they don't want to fall behind. So it's an interesting scenario. So you got Bezos, you got Branson, the bees, right? Bezos, Branson, now Musk. And so, I mean, because they've had the successes, people don't want to look bad. And so the prices will come down. It already has. I mean, look about the reusable rockets. Look at what Dragon's done. It's the price have come down, and yet at the same time, it seems like the quality has gone up. So I'm excited about it. And we've got governments around the world that also want to get involved in it. They want to be on the moon. They want to spend time. They want to colonize Mars. They want to explore, the galaxy. So it's a very interesting time. So we're being pushed, competitively being pushed. They are to get out there, and who's going to be on Mars first? Who's going to colonize it? And I was jokingly talking about Musk, but I mean, literally, I read yesterday he sold his houses. He wants every penny that he has so that he can colonize Mars and move, right? So it's interesting. And we've got we're in a journey. We're like, right out of, we're not even out of the womb yet, actually, in terms of where we are in space, right? We haven't even started this journey. We're going to find things out there. I mean, there is life out there, and we're going to find some things. And, be careful what you ask for too, right? So we're going to find some things that are going to be pretty interesting for us. And as Stephen Hawking said, there could be civilizations 100 million years ahead of us, right? And the aerial threats and some of the recent released videos from the Department of Defense. I mean, it's interesting, right? We've been talking about a long time, but now we're starting because people have their cameras on their phones, and now the defense. There was with the bill for the stimulus package. In that bill, I don't know if you saw that. There's they have 6 months to release information on UFOs.
Which I believe I saw something on that there was actually a release of some of that information.
Well, they did 3 videos, right? Because they had the 3 videos with the, I mean, there was there was a couple of instances where they've had objects that were flying incredibly, went up 60,000 feet, were buzzing a aircraft carrier. One of them was one of the ones that Christopher shared with me. There was a object that was 12 miles out that traveled underwater. They figured it about 10,000 miles an hour because it was underneath the aircraft carrier and shut off all the lights, right? And so, so there's something. I mean, if it's humans made it, they've made quantum leaps forward, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be interesting, right? We're going to change. Our viewpoints have changed a lot, right? We've come into a very interesting situation where we understand technology can do incredible things that we didn't think were possible before. And so,
and yet those advanced civilizations will also still be using Zoom, as it is the future.
I mean, I gotta tell you, it is from another planet.
It is, shout out to Eric and the team at Zoom for bringing us the future into the present. So fun fact, I actually was just doing a quick Google search to find that article that we were all referencing in about 8 minutes ago. So talk about timing. 8 minutes ago, there was actually a news article just published that the CIA, so here in the United States, has declassified a massive, long-awaited trove of documents related to UFO sightings over the last 70 years as well. So it's out there in a zip file. It's called the Black Vault. The Black Vault is a site that is showcasing a lot of the documents that were released that you can easily find as well. So just a fun little fact for your Wednesday morning or afternoon. I'll share the article.
Sounds interesting. I mean, the thing is, you look at it, it's like, come on, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out if there are 200 trillion galaxies in the universe, what's the probability of life being on one of those planets that, takes 6 billion times 200 trillion, it's
well, we also just
real high,
we also just discovered Jupiter has many more moons than we initially thought as well. I mean, this is, to both of your points, there is so much to be discovered when it comes to the space industry as a whole. And we, to use a reference from Ifran in our previous show, we are at the very early dusk of this industry. We have not even yet reached the dawn of this industry, which is incredibly exciting, and also just a wave of opportunity in front of us as well. And as we come close to the top of the hour, I do want to come to both of you, Crown, closing thoughts and your prediction as to what happens this year. Because 2021 to me feels like the year that the space industry really takes off, all puns intended, as well in that one. For everybody.
Being funny today.
Hey, it's midweek. Midweek, Irina kicked us off with open mic. I mean, she did a great job with all her jokes, so it's perfect. But Gary, let's come to you. Closing thoughts. Beyond just space, what is your big prediction for artificial intelligence in 2021?
We're going to move towards unsupervised AI, and we're talking more and more about compassion and emotions being brought in, because we don't want to have a pragmatic system that makes decisions that may have a very negative consequences for humanity. We need to build compassion in. We need to have those kind of training sets so that we have understanding, love in a good way. And we got to understand we need to treat the robots, we need to treat the artificial intelligence in an entirely different way, because, you don't want, in fact, I'll send over my next article that will come out tomorrow in Medium, but we want to get to a point where we treat it the right way, because when it gets smarter than us and is beyond 60,000 complex transactions per day, nothing good may happen, right? Mm-hmm. Especially being able to control everything. So this is a dawn of a great opportunity in artificial intelligence, in quantum computing. We're just getting the dusk. And it's a great opportunity for each and every startup to get involved. Look at space, there are accelerators, Arena's the guru of it. Places like, all over. Matt Kozloff has one, Techstars, et cetera. So there's places to go. And remember, you can use the technology. AI models are transportable. They can use in multiple vertical markets. It's all about the training sets. So it's not like if you develop some AI for a particular area, it's only going to be used in one. It can be used in many. And that's
wonderful.
Go ahead.
No, you're answering the question.
Yeah, so you can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Twitter. Here, I love VCTV. Kyle's incredible. It's good to see my friends like Irina, good friends. And, the knowledge is there, the opportunities are there, and there's funding out there to be able to support it. Go get them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hearts all around, and thank you very much for the kind words from myself and from the entire team as well. Thank you, Gary. Arena, to you, close us out. Quick closing thoughts, and where can you be found online along with Space Fund for people to continue the conversation?
Just Google Space Fund, and you'll be able to find it there, and that's where you can really find the references that I mentioned about the space rating. You'll basically be able to see kind of what does the ecosystem looks like, what is overfunded, what is underfunded, what opportunities are there for either investments or just keeping an eye, or being an entrepreneur and starting a company. And so I do want to encourage entrepreneurs to start looking at the space and seeing what kind of solutions they can come up with. And my closing thoughts would be, think outside of the box. I think that's one of the things that we've been training ourselves, and we've observed that things can change very fast, and they can change in a very global scale. And the technology demonstrated to us that it can keep us together and it can keep us connected. So think outside of box, and I think that this is our opportunity globally to really establish those standards of compassion. So as we move forward the frontiers of our own frontiers and move into the space, we can have the tools that to communicate what it's like to be a human and thrive and not be a survival mode. And I think because space tries to kill us, we need to be thriving in order just to survive. And so I do think that we'll see, well, first of all, we'll see space tourism coming up this year. So there are already many announcements that you see for that. Also for deep tech, I do want to mention distributed ledger technology too, because it is a deep tech, and what distributed ledger technology allows us to do is to democratize investments and opportunities for people all over the world through its application to capital markets. And so compliant tokenized securities are going to really take attraction. I do believe that we'll see some interesting development in the quantum, and of course the compassionate AI. It's one of the, I believe that as we are kind of moving into the tokenization space as well, I do want to mention that we can use the tools, for example, course-specific offerings, and create kind of a independent structures that can concentrate, for example, on creating a compassionate AI, or sending a mission to moon for let's say ice mining, and to just put in the stake just to represent humans and not a private enterprise, right? Because as we are colonizing the moon, who is going to own it? While there are some rules that state that it doesn't belong to anybody, but hey, if I am there, and or whoever is there, and they have their stakes, I do believe they'll start making their own rules. So Google me, connect with me, and and find me. And again, I just mentioned that earlier too, but I would love to, my closing thoughts would be, we need to start supporting these truly decentralized platforms, because the single source of truth is going to be a really important foundation for many innovations, and for us to be able to evolve as human civilization.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Arena and Gary. Thank you both so much. Thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, share, and also make sure you check out the archive as well to hear not only more from Arena and Gary, but all of our speakers that we bring together here on VCTV, and to talk about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world with each of their on-the-ground perspectives and insights to educate you and also offer you new opportunities that you may be interested in getting into as well. And thank you, Gary and Arena. Also, if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, reach out. And as an entrepreneur, do reach out as well to join us on the virtual stage that we have here on VCTV to pitch us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback, exposure to the entire VCTV community. Reach out to the team and or myself to find the right spot for you. And speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LaToken team and to Maria for making VCTV possible. every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Check me out everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott to connect, along with Arena and Gary on all social medias as well. Make sure you add context when you do. With that, we'll be back here tomorrow with more VC.